What's up, guys? I'm Andrew Smirsick with Combat Art Training. I'm here today with Garry Marr of Tremis Dynamics. Now, I've taken dynamic pistol, dynamic carbine, day 3 dynamic carbine, and now recently, this past week, I did the Science of Dynamic Violence and the Crucible with Garry Marr and Sonny Physicus. I love their classes. Every time I'm at one of Garry's classes, I am getting some what I call big learning moments, as in new perspectives, new ways to think about things. It's like Garry's a dude that I love to call and chat on the phone with, and he'll usually kind of narrow out the thing I'm thinking about or give me some sort of advice or something else to look into that kind of solidifies my thought process. Garry, why don't you fill them in on stuff about Tremis Dynamics, like where you guys travel to and what types of classes?
All right, so we've been doing this kind of full time now since 2019, kind of part time since 2016. I've been teaching since 2009, so we've kind of evolved the classes to get them to where exactly we want them, not just the cookie cutter like you see all over. So kind of for this is going to sound terrible, our dogma is that we don't want any dogma.
Right.
Doctrine is for a military manual, dogma is for in a church somewhere. This should be ever evolving. We should be looking at it with a critical eye and adapting as needed. A lot of training companies don't do that, which disappointed me, which kind of pushed me towards doing it that way. Like, hey, every single thing, let's look at it from every angle possible, and if there's a better way, we'll adapt it or adopt it, and if there's not, we're going to continue on with what we're doing. And that changes as we go. Like some things are like, yep, we're locked in, and then, oh no, there is a better way to do this. So the classes we teach, normal big picture things, carbine classes, pistol classes, vehicle-based classes. Then we do like some outdoor skills stuff, like I call them outdoor skills. We do bug out type thing events, radio classes, land navigation classes. Those tend to be a little more traditional because that's such a long, old process of how to live in the woods, how to navigate with a map and a compass, that there isn't a lot, like it's been figured out. But it's skills that tend to be lacking in some places, so we thought, well, hey, we know how to do that, let's offer classes. We do a lot of force on force, and we do different force on force than, or I should say we try to encompass all the types of force on force. We have Adeptus pistol, which is more decision-based scenarios. We have our fish classes, which is how to fight in someone's house, aka your house, not necessarily with the team, like CQB, which that has its own doctrine that we try not to get stuck on the doctrine, so it's a little different. And we do a diagnostic style class, which is where we try to slay any sacred cows of normal traditional classes. So we'll grab airsoft guns, sim guns, and we'll go do all the drills that you would do in a 2-day, 3-day pistol class, but we do it against a resisting opponent and find out that those normal, typical 2 or 3-day pistol classes leave a lot of gaps to be filled.
Note on that, I was like, Garry, I got this idea for a class where it'd be like a tactical pistol class, but against a person the whole time. He's like, we've been doing that for a while.
Which says, hey, he has a great idea. He also doesn't read our website, but I'm okay with that. I wrote the website, so if you don't read it, it's probably for the better. So that's kind of what we do, and like our viewpoint on it, places we do it at, obviously here in Pennsylvania. We got a shoot house that we use. Our main range, that's in Scranton. Our main range is in Sugarloaf. We also now recently acquired use of what I call the Dark Range, which is a private PD range, which isn't the same one we do most of our classes on, but we can shoot 24/7 there and blow up cars and shit like that. So we're able to do everything that we want to do. We have access to here in PA. Travel-wise, Texas, 3 different places in Texas. Fort Honey Badger with Sonny, we've taught classes there. Paducah, Texas, which is not Paducah, Kentucky, it's a whole different place. And Del Rio, Texas. Kalispell, Montana. we've been in Tennessee, Florida, down in Aries, which is where we have linked up a couple of times. Ohio, Illinois, Wisconsin, hit all those places. Not all the time. Sometimes it might be a couple of years between heading back to a certain location. But Florida, Texas, Pennsylvania every year. Well, Pennsylvania every month, but Florida and Texas we definitely hit every year. And we'll go other places too. We just need that person to say, hey, will you come to my range in, Schmucksville, wherever. Probably. Where's there a hotel? And there better be a good place to eat.
Right.
And I like brisket. So note to whoever's looking to host.
If you go to a Florida class, most likely I'm there too. So
yeah, I can't foresee a reason why I would be in Florida and you wouldn't be there.
Yeah, right. Now the dark range that you use, are you guys doing night vision stuff there too?
Yes. So we are doing white light classes, both pistol and carbine, and night vision classes, which is mostly carbine. Not that there's no pistol in it, but it's mostly carbine because the gear is better equipped for carbine stuff. Lasers, illuminators, that kind of thing, which really don't exist in a pistol world to any sort of degree that we think is good. And we also do night vision stuff that isn't shooty stuff. So land nav at night, we do that in our day 3 navigation class. We will work in the dark with white lights if that's what people have. And if they have night vision, we'll do stuff with night vision in that nav class as well. And we're going to do this year in the fall, we're doing some vehicle stuff with nods as well. So
damn, that's cool.
So we're trying to fill in everything that we can do with the resources that we have.
Right now. Yeah. So like there's a lot of opportunity that covers a lot of spectrums. One of the biggest ones, force on force, that is the thing that I've been trying to push in videos, even though I don't offer it yet. I don't have a class. Like my students they'll come over, we'll do some stuff at my house, but I haven't put it out there. Now, let's talk about the science of dynamic violence and the crucible a little bit. Now, due to nonsense I was dealing with, I was only able to make it to the last 2 days, but that class was really cool because it was watching you and Sonny both, take over and teach different parts and then interject important things. And then it was a ton of practical application and lots of failure points that we were all reaching. Like I failed a ton in that class, and I'm so glad for it because, I had done the tactical response classes where it's decision making, going through scenarios, but those classes are not as chaotic. Like the role players in those types of classes are generally trying to teach you lessons. They're not trying to give you a punch in the face of reality of where your skills are actually at. So what I was experiencing in the science of dynamic violence and the crucible was things like, damn, like I didn't get positive ID, like that guy had the drop on me when I was at this position, I took too long here, lots of stuff like that. So what was kind of thought process on the things that you guys were teaching in that class, and how do you like to conduct force on force?
So we do a scenario-based set of classes as well. And that certainly has its place. Like I would never say anything bad about that style of force on force. What Sonny and I wanted to do is, like, we have a lot of deep conversations that really dig into maybe some minutia of training. Because when you do a bunch of it, the big picture, you get sorted out pretty quickly. Well, maybe not quickly, but that sorts itself out.
Yeah, it's simpler.
But the little pieces, that's where you can start digging in a little deeper. So Sonny and I talk about those pieces all the time. And he said to me last year after the second muster, he said, hey, you wanna do some of this together? And he goes, our philosophies are so similar. We had no strict details because neither one of us had a force on force class from the other one. But our philosophies mesh so well, we're like, let's just do something together. And the idea behind it was, let's take 3 days and dig into all the little nooks and crannies that you can explore with force on force that you can't explore on a live fire range, or that it's harder to explore on a live fire range. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. So we had a little points that we like. I want to make sure I talk about this, and he said had one he wanted to talk about that, and then we just kind of riffed off each other. It was almost like jazz musicians that are like, I don't know the song, but I hear that it's a 4/4 beat, and I'm just going to jump in and play some stuff. And I thought that worked pretty well between us.
It did. Yeah.
Because our philosophies were still trying to get to the same point. Like I knew that it wasn't going to be there wasn't going to be any friction from how we thought about stuff.
Right.
And that was basically it. Like all the little pieces. You take a little piece, I'll take a little piece, and then we would just interject as needed. And then we would take them and go pressure test them against the resisting opponent.
Right.
And that was the point of the first 3 days. And then the fourth day was more of all right, let's put it to the test. And if there are failure points, let's, drop it back, address those, and then go put it to the test. And for some of those scenarios, we didn't use role players. The idea was that you would pressure test against one of the other students. And you're both trying to work out your problem against each other. Because we weren't trying to necessarily have a role player teach you like a decision-making lesson. It was, I need to figure out how to use a vertical piece of cover. Well, so does he. So we'll work it against each other. And then Sonny and I were there to be able to coach as necessary and kind of prod you in the right direction so that you would think about how to fix the failure. And the Crucible was more along the lines of, hey, like, you're gonna go do it. We'll find the failure point, but sometimes your bad guy might be more well-versed in shooting you than you are him. So
like, it's hard. It's really hard. Like, I don't think anyone went through and was like, oh man, that was easy. I just smoked all those bad guys. And, like.
And like, if for instance, you did well, and Sonny said, hey, so if we put him against that guy's going to learn lessons. Andrew might not because the skill level was different. So Sonny said, I'll jump in there with him, and I'll be his opponent for this. So he'll have to work a little harder at it. And so we did that for some students as well, because it was kind of the test.
Right.
And so that was kind of the point of the Crucible, was to test the things from the previous 3 days of class, or we sent out invites to folks that we personally knew that thought, hey, you're ready to come pressure test your stuff. And if you don't like the way that it worked out, you should have took the other 3 days as a brush up.
Yeah, I wish I could have made it for the first 2.
You were trying.
Yeah,
you were trying. The airline, I wasn't very cooperative.
Between the Paris Police Department and
I was going to leave that part out.
I'll probably make a video on it. Tickets should be simple to pay. Yeah, man.
So I don't know how often that will be offered, since it's a collaborative class. We'll probably do something again at some point, and whether it's that format or a different format, because that's what jazz musicians do. They just jump up. It might not be the same song next time.
Right.
But we'll probably continue to do stuff together. It's probably as well some other folks. Sonny's going to do a collaborative class with a couple other friends of mine, and one of them has to drive past my state to get down there to do that. So I'm going to convince him to pick me up and let me come be a student in it.
Nice.
So I do dig collaborative classes like that. I like the idea that, multiple perspectives from one class that may mesh or at least have some friction.
Yeah. Now, and that's a good point right there too, is Garry wants to be a student in another class. See, that, I take a lot of classes, and the thing that I notice is my favorite classes come from instructors who are good students, guys that are still taking classes, and also it has to be from outside their circle, because from what I've heard, you pretty much train all over the place, and because if you just stay inside the one circle, like I only go to these 4 people because they're my favorite, you're not really training, you're kind of masturbating, you're staying within the box. And if you don't exit that box and look at things differently, you don't really even know for sure that you're doing things correctly.
Right.
So for you, what are some of your favorite classes that you have taken, and what were some of the recent classes you took?
So I would say on the recent side, and it's hard when you say favorite, because often the recent ones are your favorite because they're new and exciting. And most recent classes that I've taken as a student were CQB classes from Green Line. I know you're a big fan of Don as well, and as am I. And Orion Training Group. I took 3 days with those guys, and I thought that was great as well. I think I might even wrote a blog article about one or both of them, or made a video. I hate making videos, so it probably wasn't a video.
Yeah, I'm always trying to get him to make videos.
I've made some videos. It's such a pain that I don't like to make them anymore.
I have to come to Pennsylvania to make it happen.
And I'm not editing this, so this isn't the part I dislike even. It's the next part.
Yeah.
And that's on you. I've had, I would say my favorite classes, the two classes that stand out as like the most, I drove home with a whole sense of awe, was the first time I took fighting pistol from Tactical Response in 06, maybe?
Wow.
7, somewhere in there. It was right after Jay Gibson started working for Jaeger. He was still the new guy.
Oh.
And nobody knew he was working there. Like it wasn't, and this is like pre-YouTube, so nobody really even knew who James was at that point. That and Taps Pistol with Pat McNamara.
Okay.
Which I took in 2016, I think. Though both of those classes, the material, in addition to the delivery, left me driving home going, man, I want to do that for a living.
Right.
In 2016, I already was doing it for a living, and it made like recharged me to keep doing this, and because anything you get burnt out on once in a while. And but man, after that class, I was like, I am on the right path. I never want to spend a day of my life not doing this.
Right.
And in 2006 or whatever, when I took fighting pistol, I went, that's what I'm going to do.
I think that even plays into like when you take classes, you may be like, all right, I feel like I understand all the stuff about shooting a gun fast and all that pretty well, but then you go take another totally different style class, and you're like, whoa, like I didn't know this stuff existed,
Yep.
And even I was having a conversation with Calvin last night about like what type of a dimensional trainer or student are you, or gunfighter or whatever, and it's like, if you're just staying in that one dimension, it's different. And so breaking out of that, or even just seeing a really, really well executed class. What was it that you liked about the TAPS class? I've done fighting pistol a couple times already. So.
Yeah, so you got that.
Yeah.
I know
that
you
one.
understand.
Yep.
So the TAPS class was 2 days of pistol, and normally Pat does TAPS as a 1 day pistol, 1 day carbine, but the host wanted more pistol stuff. And I was going to take it because it was logistically right for me to finally get a class with Pat. Because like everyone, I follow him on the internet, basic dude stuff. And I was like, I want to see what that cat's about. So I go take the class, and his personality and the way he delivered it, the way that he worked to get the messages through to me that he was trying to teach, which weren't the same as everybody else. It was not a diverse class. There were 15 students. 13 of them were Pennsylvania State Police troopers, and me and one of the guys that was on the first season of Alone, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he got second place. We were the only 2 non-police officers, and they're state troopers, and they're different than like real cops. So I was like, all right, well, he's going to teach to them in the way that state cops do their training, and he did. And then, well, you learn different, and I'll teach to what I think you need. He's real good at picking up on, what made me tick without me having to tell him. And he pushed me to do better than I thought I could do, and made me feel like I wanted to come back for days 3, 4, 5. There were only 2, but had there been more, I'd have been back for more. So his ability to read what I needed and then deliver it to me in the way that worked, I was really impressed by.
Yeah, that's not a thing that everyone has, and that's a difficult thing to do when you're in his shoes.
Right. Right, especially when you're like, it's almost like a private class for like this state police barracks, except for these 2 cats who ain't nothing like those guys. So I was glad he could shift gears real well, and I also at that point, being a full-time professional instructor, watching him work his craft, I was like, I'm taking other things from this too. I'm taking teaching lessons from him, because I was seeing how he was able to navigate the class in front of him, and I was like, not only are there lessons about how to shoot a pistol, there were lessons about how to teach people things. And that is something that I don't think the average student gets if you aren't also a teacher of some type. You don't pay attention to the teaching methodologies. And that probably was one of the biggest things that I took from Tap's pistol, because I can shoot a pistol. I could probably skip pistol classes and still do okay. So it was the how he taught, I think, probably made the biggest impact on that class.
Very cool. And now, the final thing I wanted to talk about in this video would be the kind of the difference between the mindset and philosophy in your training, your method, that you want to, how you want to approach everything for an individual civilian or a civilian with one or two guys that he's friends with, versus how things are taught in more of a military perspective. So I kind of like you maybe even mentioned like dogmas like that you talked about in the beginning.
That big philosophy versus what military background, and a lot of trainers, they come from military background. But we're both vets too, so I get that. You learn something, you're like, oh, I can pass this on. But if you look at it critically, the person you're teaching to doesn't have the same resources in those two scenarios. You know, Joe Citizen and, you know, member of a 300,000 strong military force. Like, what do I have to work with? Whatever's in my pockets. And so what often happens with schools is that they take this training they have that's based around 30 guys, 20, 15 guys, you know, hell, do they ever get below 4? Probably not. And they start trimming parts off to try to cater it to you or us together. And I can't say that it's terrible, but I thought maybe there's a better way. So instead of doing it that way, we kind of scrap all that and start with, all right, all I have is me. What do I need to know to be able to accomplish, you know, success using these tools? And then, well, how can I maximize that if I happen to have the resources of somebody else with me? So instead of taking a big group and cutting parts off to turn it into a solo lesson, we start with, what do you need to do this solo? And then can we expand on that if we happen to be lucky enough to have partners? So we just took it from the other direction, and obviously we found changes that would work better. And we didn't have to try and fit our lesson into the grand scheme that we learned in the Navy. I could be like, fuck all that, I don't care. I'll just do what I'm doing and then figure out if that works when I can add some extra folks to it.
Right, and that's one of the things that I absolutely love about taking your classes. The other thing is, like, you know, when I take Tremis class, I'll be like, man, I was like against doing that thing till you showed it to me in that way and demonstrated that stuff with it. Like, for instance, switching shoulders with a rifle for, cover, of course, but mostly shooting on the move. That was something I was like, damn, I'm going to drop $1,000 on an airsoft gun right now and practice that in my yard till I'm awesome at it. There's been a lot of like big moments like that where I thought I was for sure on the thing that I was doing, and then I'm like, nope, changing that. So,
and I'm not gonna lie, I was there too. Like, there was a point where I was taught this, I believed in it, and I taught it the same. And you know, it took something to make me go, let's take a better, more critical look at this. And then it took a while. Then I had to vet it, pressure test it. Like, oh, I might be onto something here. You know, and then I would talk to other instructors and say, hey, what have you seen? And just to get them to help me pick apart whatever it was. Because if I say, man, I found a new technique, and I go to Jay Gibson and say, hey, what do you think about doing it like this? Within moments, he's going to look at it from his perspective and go, this is where it won't work. All right, thank you. Because then I might be redrafting it. I still might not go back to the old way, but it might help me steer the new way. So I'm a big fan of working with other instructors that I respect and bouncing ideas off of them. And I don't care if they take the idea and use it themselves and go, that's fucking brilliant. I want to steal it. Consider it a gift. Like, I'm not inventing anything. Like, I'm sure everything I think of has been thought of by someone at some point. It just never crossed in front of my eyes. So I would not feel weird that whatever I said, somebody else took it.
Like he was, we were talking about that the other day, and it's basically like, hey, if I adopt his stuff and I get way better, well, that's just going to make him want to do better even more. So the rising tide raises all ships. And
absolutely,
the other thing along these lines too is the dogma and the thinking that you have everything Correct. That's a lot of ego that's out there, and that's that's a problem. Like especially when it comes to saving lives. 'Cause one of my closeouts is training saves lives. Well,
Exactly.
if training is more based around looking at what a cool guy does and thinking, well, that's absolutely the best, well, that's not correct. You need to like look at it from every single angle, and we talk about those things like on our own all the time and be like, this guy said that thing, and we just like pick it apart and the reasons why. And I even make videos on certain things, like whether it's malfunctions clearing procedure, or I'm about to do one on, do you have to look at the holster? Does that really matter? And stuff like that. And people freak out about
been on fire lately.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think I just failed to record it because I was trying to edit it and I couldn't find it, but I wanted that one posted right now. But yeah, so it's not, I have seen a lot of people trying to emulate or copy the things that dudes in, special forces or whatever are doing. But the issue is, first off, I'm not backed up by anyone. I don't have a helicopter coming or a call for fire mission. Also, the consequences for my decisions are completely different.
We don't have an ROE that'll cover us.
No.
Like, oh, hey, we were told this is what we can do.
Right.
We have a jury who is going to look at whatever we do. That's a whole different set of protections, and we got to work within that. And we can't just be like, hey, the rules said dude had a gun, we can smoke him. No, like that's not a thing here in Joe's citizen world. So we have a lot of other stuff to work out that we don't get there, like not just resources, but the restrictions as well.
Yep, and I might have my wife and baby next to me while it's happening.
Yeah, it's not, like if it's me and you, I'm like, oh, he's going to handle himself over here in this side of the fight. I can work about what's going on my side of the fight. Now it's, I just have to protect them. I might need to trade some of my hit points to keep them and their hit points.
Right.
For all you D&D nerds out there.
All right, man. Anything else you want to leave them with?
It would be awesome if you guys took a look at what we're doing. If something strikes your fancy and you're like, man, why do they do that way? I'm interested. You can always reach out to us on any of the social medias that you find us on. And if you only want to get a taste of it, every year we run a big event called the All Hands Muster, which you presented at. We get our guys and other guys, and we give little bits of stuff. It's really affordable, so it's a chance to maybe come get a taste of not just what Tremis Dynamics is doing, what's Combat Art Training doing, what's Praelectus doing, because we kind of get a smorgasbord there. So it's a way to be non-committal and still get a little bit of finding out what's going on. So that's always an option as well.
That's one you need to go to. I was so impressed with it, and it was just a one-day thing this year. All the stuff going on.
Rumor has it might be 2 days.
Yes, it needs to be 2 days next year. And I really hope that the Science of Dynamic Violence happens again next year right before it, because that was fucking awesome.
We might call it something different with a different approach. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe we'll do something live fire, and but with the same principles. I don't know. Well, Sonny and I will chat, and we'll figure out something we can jam together. A couple jazz tunes. He's who's the jazz guy with the big cheeks that plays the
I got no idea.
I don't know. I know that guy's popular. He might not even play jazz.
We only know what jazz is because we listen to Megadeth anyways.
Exactly. If it wasn't for Chris Poland, I'd be like, what is jazz?
All right.
Awesome.
Cool. So, yeah, I got all the links in the description for Garry. He also has a live stream every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Central?
8:05 Eastern?
Eastern, my bad.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know time zones.
And it's most every Wednesday. There are sometimes shit comes up and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Mostly it's every Wednesday.
I've been on it a few times. I'm going to have Garry on my channel during the live stream too. So check all that out. Get to a class, look at his schedule in the calendar, which I'm going to go ahead and make the first link for Tremis Dynamics. And that's it. So thank you for watching. Keep fighting communism. Kill all pedophiles. And remember that training saves lives.